My name is Ariana Hayes. While I quietly turned 18, my parents threw a full surprise party just not for me. They decorated the entire house in silver balloons, bought my sister a brand new iPhone, and handed me a half-eaten cake from the fridge along with a card that said, "Be more like her." Everyone laughed. I smiled back, pretending it didn't hurt, pretending I didn't feel myself disappearing in the one moment that was supposed to belong to me. But sometimes, a single moment is enough to wake you up. Enough to push you out the door, enough to rewrite your whole life. Before I take you deeper into what really happened that night, have you ever felt unseen by the people who should love you the most? And where are you listening from right now? What city? What time? People think favoritism happens in big, dramatic moments, choosing one child's side in an argument, giving one a larger gift, praising one in front of guests while ignoring the other. But that isn't how it works, not really. Favoritism is quiet, it's subtle. It's woven into the fabric of everyday life until it becomes the air you breathe. And for as long as I can remember, Lily had always been the air my parents inhaled, while I was just the background hum they never fully registered. When we were little, everyone called Lily delicate. Not weak, not spoiled delicate, like a porcelain doll you couldn't place too close to the edge of a table. If she cried, 3 adults rushed in. If she frowned, someone brought snacks. But when I cried, the response was always the same. "You're strong, Ariana. You're our independent girl." I used to think that was meant as a compliment. Only later did I realize it was permission. Permission for them to forget I needed care too. Lily was comfort, I was responsibility. Lily needed protecting, I needed to manage myself. I can pinpoint the first time I understood the difference. I was 9, Lily was 7, and we were at the town fair. Lily tripped on uneven pavement and fell, barely scraped her knee. But she burst into tears, her voice echoing through the entire row of booths. My mother rushed over like Lily had been shot, dropping her purse, kneeling dramatically, cupping Lily's cheeks in both hands. "My baby, my sweet baby. Are you hurt? Oh my God, we need ice, we need bandages, someone help." A few people turned and stared sympathetically. Dad carried Lily all the way to the car, even though she insisted she could walk. Meanwhile, I trailed behind them quietly, holding Mom's dropped purse. That night, as Mom patted Lily's hair and tucked her into bed, as if she were recovering from surgery instead of a minor scrape, she turned to me and said, "Ariana, sweetie, can you bring your sister some water? She had a hard day." I wanted to say, I was there too. I saw everything too. I walked the same distance and ate the same cotton candy and stood in the same hot sundae. But I didn't. I just nodded and fetched the water. That's who I was even back then, the helpful one, the background character who filled everyone else's needs so perfectly they forgot I might have any of my own. It only escalated with age. When Lily was 16, she borrowed Dad's car, an old white sedan he'd had for years, and backed it straight into a mailbox. She called Mom crying, and immediately everything transformed into a family emergency. Mom left work early to comfort her. Dad assured Lily it wasn't her fault. The next month, Lily had a new car. Not a used one. A new one. A blue compact with a bow on top, like something out of a television commercial. "We want her to feel confident behind the wheel," Dad said. "She's sensitive, you know." A week later, when I asked if I could use the car to drive to a scholarship interview for a summer design program, something I had researched, prepared for, memorized every detail about my mother, sighed like I was burdening her. "Ariana, do you really need to chase things like that? You're not like Lily. You're not flashy. Just focus on school, do well, and keep your head down. Stability is more important than trying to stand out." She didn't say it to be cruel. That was the worst part. She genuinely believed she was protecting me from disappointment, as if I was someone who needed to shrink in advance to avoid being crushed. I remember sitting on the stairs that afternoon, listening to Lily laugh in her new car outside, and thinking, how is confidence something she deserves, but ambition is something I should fear? The truth is, my family didn't have to say they favored her. It was written everywhere, in their reactions, in their tone, in the small rituals of everyday life. When Lily came home with a C+ in math, she got sympathy. You tried your best, baby. Math is hard. We'll get you a tutor. When I got an A on my English exam, Mom just nodded and said, good. Keep it up. No celebration. Not even a smile. As if excellence from me was expected, automatic, hardly worth noticing. I used to wonder what it would take to impress them, to make them look at me with the same softness they always reserved for her. I thought if I just worked harder, if I just achieved more, they would see me. But the truth is, you can't impress people who aren't looking in your direction to begin with. One memory stands out the clearest, like a shard of glass that never worked its way out. I was 14, sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of application forms for a summer art academy. It wasn't just a camp, it was a real program, the kind that could open doors, the kind that made kids believe they could build a future from creativity. I had spent nights practicing my portfolio pieces, sketching until my fingers cramped. When I finally worked up the courage to ask Mom about the application fee, she didn't look angry. She looked amused. Baby, programs like that are for gifted kids, she said gently, brushing away my hope with a smile. You're not that type. And anyway, those things never work out for families like ours. Let's be realistic. I nodded again. I always nodded. But later that night, I overheard her telling Dad that she didn't want to waste money on something I would never get into. It wasn't even the money that hurt. It was the way she said waste, like I was a bad investment. Like I was the sensible daughter, the practical one, the one who should know her place and not dream too loudly. Meanwhile, when Lily mentioned she wanted to learn photography on a whim, she was given a new camera, a lighting kit, 2 lenses, and a subscription to an editing app despite the fact that she quit 2 weeks later because it looked harder than on TikTok. As the years passed, the favoritism didn't just become clearer, it became structured, intentional, institutional. Dad shared more stories about Lily at family gatherings. Mom framed Lily's certificates, even the participation ones, and hung them in the hallway. My awards remained in a drawer. When I got accepted into the advanced English track at school, Mom told one of her friends, Ariana is responsible, so she gets placed in practical programs. But when Lily got picked as a backup dancer for a school talent show, it became a family headline. She's such a star. Growing up like that does something strange to your mind. It doesn't make you angry at first, it makes you invisible. And invisibility can be comforting for a while. If no one expects anything from you, they can't be disappointed, right? If no one looks too closely, they can't judge you. I told myself they weren't ignoring me, they just trusted me, believed I didn't need them because I was strong. They don't hate me, I used to whisper into my pillow when the house was asleep. They just don't see me. It took me years to understand the truth. Being unseen isn't the same as being loved, and sometimes being the independent one is just another way of being alone. That night, as the living room burst with noise and celebration, as ribbons hung from the chandelier and Lily twirled with her new iPhone like she'd been crowned something divine, I stood among my own family feeling like a misplaced prop in someone else's movie. Maybe it would have hurt less if they had intentionally tried to embarrass me. But the worst part was that no one even thought they were doing anything wrong. Aunt Marjorie arrived first, hugging Lily so tightly I wondered how the girl could breathe. Look at you, she exclaimed. 18 soon and already glowing like a movie star. Lily giggled and said, It's just the lighting, Auntie. But Aunt Marjorie shook her head dramatically. No, baby, you just have that look the one successful girls have. You have the face for greatness. Her eyes passed over me like a camera lens sliding out of focus. She didn't say hi, didn't even nod in my direction. Just moved on. Uncle Gerard clapped Lily on the back like she'd just won a sports championship. So proud of you, kiddo. Heard you got chosen as the social chair for your class. Lily blushed. They just like my energy, I guess. Dad beamed like she'd been elected president. I stood near the kitchen doorway, half hidden, clutching my plate with the half-eaten cake. No one said anything to me. No one asked how my day was. No one even acknowledged that today was my birthday. Instead, I heard words floating around the room. She's so smart. Such a natural beauty. She's really going places, that girl, all referring to Lily, all spoken with pride so thick it painted the air. At one point, Aunt Marjorie finally did glance at me, as if suddenly remembering I existed. Ariana, sweetheart, she said, voice overly bright, where are you studying again? Before I could answer, before the first syllable even formed on my tongue, she turned away, already mid-conversation with someone else, laughing about a dress she'd bought. My answer dissolved in my throat. My cheeks burned, though no one noticed. It was such a small thing, a question asked without waiting for an answer, but it felt like a tiny scalpel cutting into something tender. People don't realize how painful it is to be consistently deemed unimportant. A lifetime of not waiting for the answer adds up. As the room swelled with chatter, Lily decided it was time for her favorite thing, a live stream. She climbed onto a chair, angling her phone for the best lighting, pushing her hair back with practiced ease. Hey guys, she chirped into the camera. Guess what? Early birthday surprise. Look what I got. She waved the new iPhone like it was a golden ticket. Comments popped up instantly, hearts, fire emojis. Oh my god, queen. Happy early birthday. She thrived under attention. It fueled her. Then she spun around and panned the camera across the room. And look, my sister got something too. Before I could step aside, before I could even react, Lily swung the phone toward me. I was standing there holding the limp paper plate and the dried, dented piece of leftover cake they'd given me. The camera caught everything: the flat frosting smudged on the side, the missing corner, the wobbling plate I tried to steady. See, Lily giggled. She got a gift too, not as fancy as mine, but, you know, it's the thought that counts. She laughed at the end, a light tinkling sound that the room echoed out of habit. The comments flew in faster. Lol. Oof. At least she got something. Why's her cake so small? That's sad. Girl looks like she needs a hug. Some laughed. Some pitied me. All of them watched me, strangers, through a screen, bearing witness to a moment I had no control over. Mom chuckled awkwardly and said, "Stop teasing your sister, Lily." But the tone wasn't reprimanding, it was indulgent, affectionate, as if Lily had done something mischievously cute. My hands trembled so slightly I hoped the camera didn't pick it up. I wanted to put the plate down, to walk away, to disappear. But instead, I forced myself to smile, to play along, because I knew the alternative, showing hurt, would only make them laugh harder, make me look dramatic, sensitive, unreasonable. In this house, Lily's emotions were precious jewels carefully protected, but mine were treated like clutter, something to sweep away quietly. People kept wandering in and out of my peripheral vision, hugging Lily, telling her how she deserved everything good coming to her. Bright future. Special girl. That spark, they kept saying. No one said anything to me except Dad, who briefly glanced over and said, "Hold the cake steady, Ariana, you're getting crumbs on the floor." He didn't even look long enough to see if I heard him. The whole time, the room felt too warm, like the air was slowly thickening. My heart thudded unevenly in my chest. My throat grew tight. I replayed the earlier moments. The banner I thought was mine, the gift that was hers, the half-eaten cake, the card, the laughter, the live stream. The comments. 100 tiny cuts, each one duller than the last, each one slicing another layer off the part of me that still hoped for something different. What hurt the most wasn't the live stream, or the questions that trailed off mid-sentence, or the way Lily shone while I faded. What hurt most was how normal it all felt to everyone else. How natural. How expected. They weren't trying to humiliate me, they simply existed in a world where my feelings weren't relevant. And if no one thinks they're being cruel, Does that somehow make it worse? Because cruelty from ignorance wounds deeper than cruelty done with intention. At least intentional cruelty acknowledges your existence. I stood there, smiling that brittle smile, clutching the sad little cake while the party swirled around me in bright, careless motion. My hands were shaking, but my face stayed still, like a mask glued in place. For the first time, a thought whispered through me, soft but unmistakable. You're not part of this family. You're just standing in it. And even though I didn't know it yet, that moment in that crowded room, holding the leftovers of someone else's celebration was the first step toward leaving it all behind. The laughter eventually thinned into softer pockets of conversation, the kind that happen after a party's peak has passed. Someone lowered the music. Someone else brought out sparkling water. People settled into the couch cushions, comfortable and full, their attention drifting but always orbiting around Lily. I had managed to slip toward the corner near the stairs, thinking if I lingered there long enough, I could become part of the wallpaper and slip upstairs unnoticed. I was halfway there when I heard my parents' voices quiet, low, the kind of tone adults use when discussing future plans. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. The words simply floated to me, each syllable as sharp as glass. Mom sighed softly. You know, she's going to do great things one day, she whispered proudly. Our Lily. She just has that spark. She'll be the one to take care of us when we're older. Dad chuckled, the sound warm and certain. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, she's the one with the personality. The drive. She'll go far, we won't have to worry with her. Mom hummed in agreement. Exactly. She'll be the one to hold the family together. Not like Ariana. That girl, she's too quiet, too ordinary. Sweet, but, you know. There was a pause, like she was searching for a gentle word. Lily just fits better in the world. She's our hope. Dad added, she'll be the one who supports us someday. We can count on her. They spoke with pride warm, glowing pride like they were blessing Lily's future. But every word was a shadow cast over mine. It wasn't even what they said, it was what they didn't say. They didn't say I would succeed. They didn't say I would do great things, or grow into someone responsible, or be someone they believed in. I wasn't in their future at all, not even as a distant possibility. According to their vision, Lily wasn't just their favorite. She was their only child that mattered. I stood perfectly still, fingers gripping the banister until my knuckles turned pale. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. It felt as if the air thickened around me, turning to concrete. People say heartbreak feels like a collapse, a sudden implosion. But what I felt froze me instead. A coldness crept through my ribs and settled behind my sternum, heavy, unmoving. I had always known I wasn't their first choice, but I never realized I wasn't a choice at all. I slipped away before anyone noticed, climbing the stairs slowly, like each step was a decade. When I reached my room, I closed the door quietly, leaned my forehead against the wood, and let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. My room looked the same as it always had, neat, simple, muted, but suddenly it felt foreign. Like it belonged to someone else. Someone who didn't exist. The fairy lights I'd hung years ago looked dimmer. The posters on the walls, a few sketches, some quotes I used to love, felt childish. My desk was clean, except for my old sketchbook and the small jar where I kept the money I'd saved, $47 and some coins. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at my backpack hanging on the chair. It was faded, the zippers stiff, the strap fraying slightly. I'd carried it for so many years that it felt like an extension of myself. Seeing it now felt like recognition, like it was tugging at me gently, saying, "It's time." Downstairs, the muffled sound of laughter drifted up the staircase. Lily's voice was the loudest, bubbling and bright. For a moment I wondered if she ever thought about how her brightness cast such a long shadow. Probably not. She lived in a world where she was the center of gravity and everyone else rotated naturally around her. It wasn't even her fault. It was simply the role she had been handed and the one I had been written out of. I opened the drawer beside my bed and took out the jar of savings. I counted the money again, even though I knew it by heart, $47.20. Then I reached under my bed and pulled out the envelope where I kept another emergency bill, a $20 bill folded neatly. $52 total. It wasn't enough to move out. It wasn't enough to start a life. But it was enough to leave. Enough to take a bus into the city. Enough to get away from this house, from this room, from this version of myself that felt so painfully small. My hand trembled as I placed the money into my backpack. My breath caught when I zipped the first pocket closed. Each sound, the zip, the click, the shuffle of fabric felt too loud, like a declaration I wasn't ready to speak aloud. But I kept going. I folded 2 shirts, a pair of jeans, a sweater, socks, me sketchbook, my charger. I was slipping on my shoes when the door creaked open. Mom stood there, arms crossed lightly, her expression soft but dismissive, an expression I knew too well. "Ariana," she said, not noticing the backpack. "Before you go to bed, darling, can you clean Lily's room for me? She's exhausted from all the excitement. Be a good sister." There it was. The sentence that sealed it. Not because it was harsh, not because it was unreasonable, but because it revealed exactly where I stood in this family. Not as a daughter, not as someone to be celebrated, not even as someone whose birthday mattered. Just as a helper. A shadow. A stand-in for responsibility. A background character meant to tidy up after the star. I swallowed hard. I don't remember what expression crossed my face, but Mom didn't notice. She didn't wait for my answer. She just closed the door gently and walked away, humming to herself. And that was it. The final drop. The moment the glass overflowed. I stood in the center of my room, heartbeat steady, breath calm in a strange, focused way. The decision was made before I even recognized it fully. I slipped the backpack onto my shoulder, pulled my hoodie tighter around me, and looked around the room one last time. Not with sadness. Not with nostalgia, but with clarity. This house did not hold space for me. So I stepped out quietly, closed the door behind me, and walked away from a life that had never truly seen me, determined to find one that finally would. I left the house without a sound. No slammed doors, no shouted words, no dramatic exits. Just quiet footsteps down the carpeted stairs, a final glance toward the living room where voices still buzzed faintly, and then the soft click of the front door closing behind me. The night air was cold enough to sting the inside of my nose, but it felt cleaner than anything I had breathed in years. I walked down the driveway with my backpack tugging at my shoulder, each step lighter and heavier at the same time. The bus stop sat 5 blocks away, at the corner where the streetlight always flickered. I'd seen it 1,000 times from the backseat of our car, but walking there alone in the dark felt like crossing into a new world. The pavement glowed damp under the streetlight, the kind of glow that made everything look soft and unfamiliar. My hands were cold, my heart steady in a strange, determined rhythm. I didn't let myself think too much about what I was doing. Thinking would have ruined everything. Thinking would have made me turn around. When the bus finally arrived, a rumbling, half-empty Greyhound, I climbed aboard and handed the driver my crumpled bills. He glanced at me for a moment longer than necessary, probably wondering why a girl with a backpack and puffy eyelids was buying a ticket at midnight, but he didn't ask questions. He just nodded and gestured toward the back. The seats smelled faintly of old leather and dust. I slid into one near the window and watched the town shrink behind me as the bus pulled away. The familiar houses blurred into shapes, then into streaks of light, then into nothing. I expected to feel guilty, or scared, or even excited, but instead, I felt blank. A numb, steady blankness that wrapped around my ribs and kept the panic at bay. Maybe this was what freedom felt like at first, hollow, shaky, waiting for meaning to catch up. The ride lasted nearly an hour, darkness swallowing everything outside the window except the occasional gas station or lonely billboard. By the time we reached the city, the streets were hushed, lit by neon signs and the occasional passing car. I stepped off the bus and was met with a swirl of unfamiliar noises, the low hum of traffic, the whirring of street sweepers, the distant shout of someone I couldn't see. I tightened my grip on my backpack and walked until I found an empty park bench near a row of trees. It wasn't much. The wood was cold and slightly damp, and the metal armrest dug into my side. But it was somewhere to sit, somewhere to breathe. I curled onto the bench, using my backpack as a pillow, pulling my hood over my head to trap whatever warmth I could. I closed my eyes and listened to the world around me, a world that didn't know my name, didn't care who was the favorite child, didn't ask me to clean someone else's room. For the first time, the silence belonged to me. I slept in short bursts, waking every few minutes when a car passed or a gust of wind brushed my face. My body ached from the stiffness, and, by sunrise, my hair felt stiff, my eyes swollen. But I stayed. The next day was a blur of wandering down streets I didn't know, past coffee shops I couldn't afford, into a public library where I sat for hours pretending to read while my phone charged in an outlet near the wall. I rationed the granola bar I had packed, eating it in tiny bites as though stretching it might somehow stretch my courage, too. The second night, I returned to the same park bench. I didn't know where else to go. My legs were heavy from walking. My clothes smelled faintly of cold air and bus seats. I slept again, if you could even call it sleep, more like drifting in and out of a fog. On the third day, I woke up with a plan. Find a job, any job, something fast. I still had my $50. That was enough for another bus ticket home if things got desperate. Enough to buy food. Enough to keep me afloat just a little longer. But fate has a funny way of rearranging the pieces just when you think you've got a plan. I was sitting on a bench outside the bus terminal, sorting through the last of my money, $47 in bills, $3 and some coins, when I felt it. The faint pressure of movement behind me. A brush, a shift, a tiny disturbance. I turned just in time to see a hand disappear into the crowd, slipping my wallet into someone else's coat. I jumped to my feet, heart pounding, but the crowd was already swallowing the person like a wave swallowing a stone. "Hey," I shouted. It came out cracked, desperate. No one turned. People kept moving, busy with their own lives, their own emergencies, their own needs. I sank back onto the bench, my breath trembling. My wallet was gone. My money was gone. The $47, the 3 singles, the coins gone. The little safety net I had held onto like a lifeline was torn away in the span of 5 seconds. For the first time since leaving home, panic clawed its way up my throat. I pressed my palms against my eyes until sparks burst behind my eyelids. What am I going to do now? I thought. How am I supposed to survive? Maybe I should go back. Maybe they'd let me come home if I apologized or pretended it was all a misunderstanding. The humiliation of that thought burned hotter than the cold wind around me. I don't know how long I sat there, rigid, staring at my empty hands. Long enough for the city to shift from morning rush to late afternoon thrum. Long enough for my body to go numb. That's when I heard footsteps approaching, slow and steady. I looked up, expecting a stranger passing by, but instead saw a woman pushing a cart filled with cleaning supplies, a city janitor in a green uniform, her hair pulled back into a bun. She paused in front of me. Her face was lined, tired in a way that spoke of years of early mornings and late nights. She held a small brown paper bag. "You look hungry," she said simply, her voice kind but firm, the kind that didn't ask for explanations. She held out the bag. Inside was a sandwich. "Here, eat." "One." I stared at it, then at her. I can't pay," I whispered, humiliation burning beneath my skin. She shook her head. "Didn't ask for money." When I didn't reach for it, she set the bag beside me on the bench, then studied my face with a softness I wasn't prepared for. "Do you have family around here, child?" The question shattered me. Not because of what she asked, but because of the gentleness in her voice, gentleness, I hadn't heard directed at me in years. My throat closed. My chest caved in. And before I knew it, the tears came silent at first, then uncontrollable, shaking, raw. I hadn't cried in years. I'd forgotten what it felt like. I covered my face with both hands, shoulders trembling, sobs caught between gasps of air. The woman didn't move. She didn't flinch. She just stood there quietly, letting me break in the only place I felt safe enough to. It was the first time I realized how much I had been holding in. The first time I understood what it meant to be alone. And the first time anyone asked if I had a family. I wished I didn't have to think about the answer. The janitor's small act of kindness lingered with me long after she pushed her cart down the sidewalk and disappeared into the drifting crowd. I ate the sandwich slowly, each bite grounding me just enough to stop the trembling in my hands. I didn't know what tomorrow would look like. I barely knew what the next hour would look like. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going back. Not yet. Not after everything. If being invisible had defined my life at home, then being alone, truly alone, was at least honest. It was mine. By late afternoon, the cold air had settled deeper into my bones, and my phone battery had slipped down to 9%. I needed warmth. I needed somewhere to sit for more than 5 minutes. I needed Wi-Fi. The public library was 6 blocks away, according to a faded map posted near the bus stop. I walked with my backpack weighing against my spine, each step stiff but determined. When I reached the library, the glass doors slid open with a soft whoosh, releasing a blessed wave of warm, filtered air. The building smelled of old paper and carpet cleaner, comforting in a way that made my throat tighten all over again. I forced myself to breathe evenly and walked inside. Rows of tall bookshelves stretched across the main floor like quiet guardians. People tapped on laptops, read newspapers, whispered to children. Nobody looked at me long enough to ask questions. Nobody asked why my backpack was full or why my clothes looked slept in. I wasn't invisible here, I was anonymous. It was a small but powerful difference. I found an outlet near the wall, sat down on the carpet, plugged in my phone, and opened the browser the moment it flickered back to life. Job listings. That was step 1. I typed in every keyword I could think of: cafe, cashier, stock clerk, assistant, part-time, night shift, weekend shift. I filled out applications for coffee shops that needed baristas, grocery stores looking for baggers, bookstores hiring seasonal help. I wrote cover letters that pretended confidence I didn't feel. I listed the high school I technically hadn't graduated from yet. I checked the email address again and again, waiting for anything to show up. By evening, the library lights dimmed to a softer glow as a quiet announcement reminded patrons that closing time was in 15 minutes. I packed my things slowly, dragging out the moment before stepping back into the cold. I wandered the streets for an hour, shivering, my breath visible in the air. I spent the night behind a cluster of bushes in a small park, using my backpack as a pillow and my jacket as a blanket. The ground was unforgiving. The darkness thicker. Every rustle of leaves sent my heart into my throat. But I survived. That became my mantra: I survived today. I will survive tomorrow too. The next morning, I returned to the library as soon as the doors opened. I checked my email again. Nothing. But I didn't give up. I applied to more jobs: boutique shops, convenience stores, bakeries. I walked into a few places in person, asking shyly if they were hiring. Most managers looked apologetic. Some looked impatient. One cafe owner barely glanced up before shaking his head. By noon, discouragement dragged at my steps. Then I saw it. A small florist shop tucked between a laundromat and a thrift store. Blooms and Branches was painted across the window in looping green letters, surrounded by framed pressings of dried flowers. The display table inside held bouquets of soft pink roses, eucalyptus stems, and wildflowers in mismatched jars. Warm yellow light spilled through the windows, making the entire place feel safe. Like a world tucked inside a world. I hesitated only a moment before stepping inside. A tiny bell chimed above my head, and an older man emerged from behind the counter. He had gray hair, a well-worn apron, and glasses that rested low on his nose. He looked up at me, not through me, not past me at me. "Help you with something?" he asked. I swallowed, hands twisting nervously. I was wondering if you were hiring. Even just for cleaning or stocking or anything. I can work hard, I learn fast. He raised a hand gently, stopping my rambling. "What's your name, kid?" "Ariana," I said, bracing myself for disappointment. He studied me for a second, not with suspicion, but with a kind of thoughtful curiosity. "I can give you a trial," he said at last. "One day. You'll clean, prep some flowers, maybe help with simple arrangements. If you do well, we'll see." My breath caught in my chest. I almost couldn't believe it. "I won't disappoint you," I managed. "Don't worry about disappointing me. Just do your best," he replied, walking toward the back room. "Come on. I'll show you the basics. And call me Mr. Green." Desk. The next few hours felt like stepping into another life. Mr. Green showed me how to strip leaves from stems, how to cut flowers at an angle, how to mix plant food into buckets of fresh water. I swept the floors, washed the front windows until they gleamed, wiped down the counter where customers picked up their arrangements. My arms ached, and my fingers stung from the cold water, but I felt steady. Present. Useful in a way that wasn't tied to someone else's expectations. When the shop closed, Mr. Green handed me a small envelope. "Your pay for today," he said. Inside was $25. It wasn't much, but it felt like the first honest money I had ever earned strictly for myself. "Come back tomorrow at 8 if you want to keep going." I nodded so fast I probably looked ridiculous. "Yes, I'll be here." But when he turned off the lights and locked the door behind us, I didn't walk away. Not far, anyway. My legs felt too tired to wander the streets again. Across the shop, a dim alley held a narrow service door with peeling paint. I tried the handle. Locked. A small maintenance room window was cracked open slightly. I squeezed myself through, desperate for shelter. The room was dark, cluttered with old vases and mop buckets. But it had a floor and walls and a spot in the corner where I could curl up, sheltered from the wind. I slept there that night. And the next. And the next. Mr. Green never knew. Each morning, I cleaned myself up in the shop's restroom before he arrived, careful not to leave a trace. And each day, I worked quietly, diligently, arranging bouquets, sweeping petals from the floor, learning the language of flowers, how lilies mean purity, carnations, resilience, sunflowers, strength. My hands grew steadier. My chest felt lighter. And in that maintenance room each night, when the world outside felt too heavy to hold, I opened my notebook and wrote one single line, over and over again, like a prayer forming itself into truth. "I'm not invisible here." The shop wasn't home. The maintenance room wasn't safe. The city wasn't gentle. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I was standing in a place where my existence wasn't an inconvenience. Where my effort mattered. Where someone saw me not as an accessory to another person's brightness, but as someone capable of her own small light. And that tiny spark was enough to keep me going. By the time my 4th week at the flower shop arrived, my life had fallen into a rhythm fragile, imperfect, but mine. Mornings started with the smell of damp stems and chilled petals, afternoons with the warm hum of customers drifting in and out, evenings with the soft crackle of my old notebook under the dim storage room light. I was exhausted most days, but it was the kind of exhaustion that made sense, the kind born from effort instead of emotional bruising. And every night, before I curled onto the thin blanket I'd stolen from a donation bin, I reread the line I wrote on the very first day. "I'm not invisible here." It became my quiet anchor. But the world has a way of testing anchors. And mine snapped the moment I opened my email that Wednesday evening. I was sitting on an overturned crate in the maintenance room, phone plugged into a wall outlet that sparked if touched the wrong way. My fingers were stiff from trimming eucalyptus stems all day. I opened my inbox expecting the usual automated job rejections or promotional spam. Instead, the subject line that stared back at me made my pulse jump. Important. Scholarship application status request. My heart stopped. I clicked. The message unfolded with painfully polite formality. Dear Ariana, we received a request from your parents to withdraw your scholarship application due to family instability and concerns regarding your readiness for academic commitments. Please confirm whether this request was authorized by you. If we do not receive clarification within 48 hours, we will proceed accordingly. For a moment, I could only stare. The room tilted slightly, the cold concrete floor seeming to slide under me. I blinked hard, once, twice, as if the words might rearrange into something less cruel, less deliberate. But no. They stayed exactly the same. They asked the school to withdraw my scholarship, my application, my future. Not because they were worried. Not because they were trying to protect me, but because they didn't want me to leave. Or worse, they didn't want me to rise higher than the daughter they actually valued. A slow, cold realization spread through my ribs. They didn't just ignore me. They didn't just forget me. They didn't just celebrate someone else on my birthday. They were actively trying to keep me from becoming someone they couldn't control. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. My throat tightened like someone had threaded a wire through it and pulled. I thought about my mother's soft condescension, my father's quiet dismissiveness, the card that said, "Be more like her." I thought about Lily receiving an iPhone worth more than everything I owned combined. And suddenly, it all clicked together with a sickening, perfect logic. They never expected me to succeed. They never wanted me to succeed. They wanted me exactly where I had always been within reach, between chores, silent, convenient, forgettable. Breathing shakily, I wiped my eyes with the sleeve of my hoodie, forcing my hands to steady enough to dial the school's number. It rang twice before someone answered, a woman with a warm, measured voice. Admissions office, this is Dr. Patel speaking. Hi, I stammered, standing instinctively even though she couldn't see me. My name is Ariana. I got an email that my parents requested to withdraw my scholarship application. I didn't authorize that. They weren't supposed to have any access. There was a polite pause. Paper shuffling. Typing. Thank you for calling, Ariana, Dr. Patel said gently. I'm looking at your file now. The request came from an email that matches your parent records on file, but there was no verification from your personal account. So to confirm this was not your wish? No, I said firmly, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. I'm not living with them. I left home. The situation wasn't safe or supportive. I didn't ask them to do anything on my behalf. I didn't want them involved. Another pause. A softer one. Ariana. I'm sorry, she said. No student's application should hinge on anyone's control but their own. I'm going to lock your account so only your verified email can request changes. All notifications will come directly to you. And I'll restore your scholarship application. But, are you safe? Do you have support? My throat tightened again, but for a different reason this time. Someone was asking if I was safe. Not out of obligation. Not out of judgment. Not to use it against me, just human concern. Yes, I whispered. I'm figuring things out. If you ever need documentation to separate your educational records from their access, she added, we can help with that too. Albos. Something warm, almost like hope, burned behind my ribs. Thank you, I said. Thank you so much. After the call ended, I stood in the little maintenance room, phone clutched to my chest, trying to calm the storm inside me. My heartbeat echoed in my ears, a steady thrum between rage and relief. For a long moment I said nothing, thought nothing. I simply existed in the quiet truth that my family had crossed a line I didn't know existed. They didn't just fail me emotionally. They were trying to erase my future. A muffled noise from outside drifted through the thin door, Mr. Green humming off-key as he swept petals from the shop floor. The scent of lilies lingered faintly in the air, soft and bittersweet. I sank onto the crate again, knees trembling. All this time, I thought their favoritism was a kind of blindness, that they were so focused on Lily's spotlight that they didn't see me fading in the background. But the truth was colder, sharper, more deliberate. They saw me. They just didn't want me going anywhere they couldn't control. In the dim glow of my phone screen, I opened my notebook with stiff fingers and added a second line beneath my original mantra. The pencil trembled, but the letters were firm. My family wasn't neglecting me, they were containing me. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of that truth. I was done being contained. For the next few days, I worked with an intensity I didn't know my body was capable of. Maybe it was adrenaline. Maybe fear. Maybe the fragile hope that, with my scholarship application restored, life might inch toward something better. I didn't let myself imagine a future not fully. But I let myself imagine a next step. One small step, and still, every night after Mr. Green locked the shop and left, I crawled back into the maintenance room, curled into my thin blanket, and tried to sleep through the cold that sank into my bones. But hidden things don't stay hidden forever. It was a Thursday morning, quiet, cloudy, the kind of day when the world feels half asleep, when everything changed. I had woken before sunrise, slipped out of the storage room, and washed my face in the bathroom sink, trying to look as normal as someone who slept on a concrete floor could. When I stepped back into the shop, broom in hand, I froze. Mr. Green was standing in the doorway of the storage room. The door hung open. My blanket lay rumpled in the corner. My backpack half unzipped beside a crate. He looked at me, then at the space, then back at me again. My stomach fell straight through the floor. I can explain, I started, voice barely holding together. I didn't mean to, I just needed somewhere, just a couple nights. He didn't yell. He didn't scold. He just walked fully into the room, picked up my blanket, and folded it neatly. For a long moment he said nothing, and the silence terrified me more than any yelling possibly could. He set the folded blanket on the crate, then turned back to me with an expression I couldn't read, part tired, part sad, part something gentler than either. "How long?" he asked quietly. I swallowed. 3 weeks. He pressed his lips together, nodding slowly like a puzzle piece had just clicked into place. "No wonder you were here before me every morning," he murmured. "No wonder you looked exhausted." He rubbed a hand over his jaw. "Kid, why didn't you say something?" The shame hit all at once, a hot wave rushing up my throat. "I thought you'd fire me," I whispered. "Or call the police. Or, I don't know. I didn't want to lose the only good thing I have." He looked at me, then really looked. His eyes softened, creasing at the corners in a way that made him seem older but also somehow kinder. "Ariana," he said, "I'm not throwing you out, and I'm not firing you. I've been where you are." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" He leaned against the counter, arms crossed lightly, gaze distant as if reaching decades backward. "When I was 17, I slept behind a bakery dumpster for almost a year," he said. "Got kicked out, no support, no place to go. I know that feeling, the cold, the fear, the pretending you're fine when you're not. I know it so well I can still feel it in my bones." He sighed. "So no, kid, I'm not turning my back on you." I stood frozen, trying to process the sudden, unexpected softness in his voice. He straightened. "Come on, grab your things." My heart dropped. Are you asking me to leave?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "I'm giving you a room. A real one. Upstairs." "Upstairs?" I blinked, following him numbly as he led me to the back hallway, unlocked a narrow stairwell, and gestured for me to go up. At the top of the stairs was a small loft apartment, nothing fancy, just a single room with a bed, a desk, a tiny bathroom, and a window overlooking the street. The sheets were mismatched. The paint on the walls was chipped. But it was warm. It had a door that locked. It had a place to put my backpack. It was mine. All the air I'd held inside my chest released at once. My vision blurred. I covered my mouth with my hands, trying not to cry, but the tears pushed through anyway, hard, shaking, unstoppable. Mr. Green quietly stepped to the side, letting me take it all in. "This place has been empty for a few years," he said softly. "Meant it for storage, but it'll do better as a home." I wiped my eyes with the back of my sleeve, voice cracking. "Why are you doing this for me?" He shrugged a little. "Because somebody once did it for me. And because no kid deserves to fight the whole world alone." That was the day everything shifted. Not instantly, not magically, but meaningfully. With an actual address, I applied for a bank account. The process was slow, confusing, unfamiliar, but the woman at the bank walked me through it patiently. I left with a tiny plastic debit card and a feeling of ownership I'd never had before. My paycheck went there now. My future money. My future decisions. With that same address, I updated my scholarship application, officially declaring independent financial status. The school emailed back asking for supporting documents. I provided everything. I had: a signed statement, screenshots of my parents' attempted withdrawal request, a confirmation from Dr. Patel. The school assured me they would review it. Days passed. I worked. I slept in a real bed for the first time in weeks. I showered in warm water instead of wiping down in a shop sink. I bought a second pair of shoes with my paycheck. I learned how to arrange lilies, hydrangeas, and peonies. I learned that customers always buy flowers for the same reasons: love, apology, loss, beginnings. I learned I liked beginnings best. Then, one evening during closing, my phone buzzed. The subject line read, "Congratulations, Ariana." My heart jumped so high it nearly hurt. Hands trembling, I opened the email. "We are delighted to inform you that you have been awarded the full merit scholarship for the spring design cohort. This scholarship covers full tuition, materials, housing assistance, and a monthly living stipend." I reread the words. Once. Twice. A third time until they stopped blurring. Full scholarship. Materials. Housing assistance. A stipend. A future. A sob escaped me, not a sad sob, but something thick with relief, disbelief, and a joy so unfamiliar it almost frightened me. Mr. Green turned from locking the till, eyebrows raised. "Good news?" he asked. I managed a laugh through the tears. "I got it, the scholarship, the full one." He grinned, slow and proud. "Told you," he said. "You're brighter than you think, kid." I pressed the phone to my chest, the warmth of the screen grounding me. For the first time in my life, my path wasn't dictated by someone else's expectations or limitations. For the first time, I had my own stepping stone, my own momentum, my own life. When I went back upstairs that night and opened my notebook, I wrote a new line beneath the others. I am becoming someone they can no longer contain. And for the first time, the words didn't feel like a wish. They felt like truth. For a full week after receiving the scholarship email, I walked differently. Not dramatically, just lighter, steadier, as if the ground finally recognized me. Mr. Green noticed it first. "Kid, you've got a glow," he teased while trimming roses. "Finally sleeping enough?" Maybe. Or maybe knowing I wasn't trapped anymore made every inhale feel less like survival and more like living. My small loft above the flower shop felt like a sanctuary. My bank account had more than $0. My scholarship paperwork was officially processing. For the first time, my future belonged to me. Then, one rainy Tuesday morning, everything shifted. I had just finished mopping the shop floor when my phone buzzed with a notification voicemail from Mom. I froze. My chest tightened. I stared at the screen without pressing play, my thumb hovering over the little triangle. It took me nearly a full minute before I forced myself to listen. Her voice came through the speaker cracked, breathy, dripping with rehearsed emotion. Ariana, sweetie, please come home. You don't understand what's happening. We miss you. I'm so sorry, okay? I didn't mean for things to go that way. Your sister is heartbroken. Your father, he hasn't slept. Please. We just need you back. Let us fix this. She sobbed softly at the end, the same delicate, fragile way she cried when she wanted people to feel protective of her. The kind of crying she used whenever relatives visited, or when she posted relatable mom moments online. I used to fall for it every single time. But listening to it now from miles away, in the sanctuary I built myself, all I felt was distance. Wide, cold, impossible distance. Still, some small part of me wondered, was any of it real? Did they miss me? Did they care, even a little? Was I being unfair for not calling back? I didn't answer. I didn't delete it either. I just tucked the phone into my pocket and returned to wiping dew from the shop windows. But that voicemail clung to me like fog the entire day. That night, after the shop closed, I climbed up to my loft, made myself a cup of cheap instant soup, and sat on the bed scrolling through job schedules and new scholarship documents when my phone buzzed again, this time with a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Aunt Mel. My mom's cousin. The quiet one in the family. The one who never spoke in arguments but watched everything with sharp, assessing eyes. Even as a child, I had sensed she noticed things other adults ignored. But she rarely involved herself in family drama, which made the message even stranger. Her text was short. Check your email, don't show this to anyone. A cold prickling sensation traveled down my spine. I opened my inbox immediately. There it was. An email from her with no subject line. Just one attachment. Family, meeting. MOV. My pulse quickened. I tapped the file. The video loaded. The first thing I saw was my grandparents' living room, the familiar floral couch, the glass coffee table, the framed family photos on the wall. My parents were sitting on one side, Lily perched comfortably between them, phone in hand, ring light set up in the corner. A few aunts and uncles sat around, cups of tea in their hands, faces drawn with manufactured concern. The camera angle was shaky, clearly hidden. Probably Aunt Mel's phone. My mom spoke first. Okay, she said, clapping her hands once. We need to coordinate this carefully. If we're going to talk about Ariana's situation online, it has to sound sincere. She smoothed her hair, checking her reflection in her phone. This might actually help Lily's engagement. People love emotional family stories. My stomach turned. My dad nodded, leaning forward. We'll say something like, our daughter ran away because of a misunderstanding, but family love brought her back. It'll make us look compassionate, and if we frame it as a mental health journey, people will be supportive. Lily giggled. I can title it something like, My Sister Left Home, but here's how we helped her heal. People eat that stuff up. Oh, and we can film a reaction video once she comes back. Exactly, Mom said, smiling proudly. Once she returns, we can film a reconciliation clip. Maybe even take her to brunch, get some photos. TikTok loves that. I'm setter. Dad added, we just have to get her home first. She can't stay wherever she is. When she comes back, we can explain everything. The room murmured in agreement, nods, soft, mm-hms, the occasional sigh about poor Ariana not understanding how families work. Not one person questioned the manipulation. Not one person cared about the truth. Not one person wondered how I was surviving. Then Aunt Mel's voice, still off camera, cut in. And what if she doesn't come back? My mother shrugged. Then we'll handle it with a "we tried" video. Something heartfelt. People will sympathize. She smiled again, as if thinking about follower counts, not her daughter's well-being. Either way, it'll boost visibility. My breath caught violently in my chest. My life, my pain was just content to them. Not a wound. Not a mistake. Not a lesson. A storyline. A marketing opportunity. A tool. Lily suddenly perked up. Oh. And maybe include that she left because she thought we forgot her birthday. It sounds dramatic but also kind of cute, like sister drama. Everyone chuckled. Everyone. I didn't realize I was gripping the phone so hard until my knuckles whitened. My vision blurred, partly from rage, partly from devastation so sharp it sliced clean. They weren't sorry. They weren't worried. They weren't heartbroken. They just wanted me back so they could use me. Package me. Edit me into a touching narrative. Sell my trauma as entertainment. I didn't cry this time. I didn't shake. I didn't feel like collapsing. Instead, something inside me crystallized, cold, clear, sharp. A sound escaped my lips, a laugh. But not the kind from amusement. Not the kind from joy. It was small, breathy, almost weightless. A laugh of realization. A laugh of disbelief. A laugh of someone who has been hurt so deeply that the pain finally burns clean. It was the first time I had laughed in weeks, and it was the coldest sound I had ever made. I replayed the video once more, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to feel every truth it revealed. Every betrayal spoken aloud. Every artificial sigh. Every strategy. Every smirk. When the video ended, I texted Aunt Mel. "Thank you. I know now." She replied within seconds. "Good. Protect yourself. They won't stop." I set my phone down and stared at the dimly lit loft. My tiny bed. My folded clothes. My notebook with its growing list of truths. My bank card. My scholarship confirmation. None of this would exist if I had stayed. None of me would exist if I had stayed. I wasn't going back. Not now. Not ever. And this time I wasn't just surviving. I was preparing. For the rest of that night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was afraid fear had burned out a long time ago, but because something inside me had finally shifted into clarity. The kind of clarity that didn't need revenge in its loudest form. The kind of clarity that didn't crave shouting or confrontation. The kind of clarity born from truth, steady and unshakable. They wanted to turn my suffering into content. They wanted to wrap my disappearance in soft lighting and edited captions. They wanted a story. So I decided to give them one. But not the one they could control. The next morning, I woke early, washed my face, tied my hair back, and sat at the small desk beside the window in my loft. The city outside was waking up, cars passing, dogs barking, the murmur of pedestrians. A soft breeze pushed through the cracked window. I turned on my phone's camera. No filters. No tears. No dramatic music. Just me. I positioned the phone upright, pressed record, and spoke with the calmest voice I had ever used in my life. "Hi," I began. "I'm Ariana. Some of you might know my family, some of you might not. I'm not here to blame anyone or to cause drama. I just want to tell the truth about something that happened to me. Because lately, that truth has been rewritten." My gaze didn't waver. My breathing stayed steady. It was my 18th birthday. I came home expecting maybe a simple dinner, maybe just a happy birthday. Instead, the house was decorated for my younger sister's birthday, which is 2 weeks after mine. She got a brand new iPhone, and I was handed a half-eaten cake from the fridge. I lifted the photo I had secretly taken, the small, dented cake with a slice missing. "And a card," I continued. It said, "Be more like her." I held up the card too. No commentary. No bitterness. Just facts. My parents later contacted my school and tried to withdraw my scholarship application. I said next, tapping my phone screen so the email screenshot appeared behind me. They said the family was unstable and that I wasn't ready for academic responsibilities. I didn't authorize that. I left home shortly after because I realized I needed to survive on my own. I kept my voice soft, steady, almost gentle. I'm not asking anyone to pick sides. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm not even asking for forgiveness. I just want the truth to exist somewhere it can't be edited for views. I ended the video with a simple, quiet line. Thank you for listening. Ah. Then I stopped the recording. The entire video lasted just under a minute. I stared at the screen for a long moment, feeling a strange mixture of fear, power, and peace all braided together. I didn't want this video on my own account. I didn't want attention. I wanted exposure, clean, factual, untraceable to my identity. So I created an anonymous Facebook account using my new email, no profile picture, no connections, and uploaded the video into a local parent community group. The kind of group where school board politics, bake sale competitions, and family gossip lived and thrived. The caption was simple. For anyone who knows this family, this is the truth. No hate, just facts. I posted it and closed the app. Not to wait, not to obsess. To breathe. I went downstairs to open the shop for the morning. I brewed coffee for Mr. Green, wiped down the counter, trimmed stems. Normal motions, grounding motions. The world inside the shop was peaceful, filled with the smells of earth and water and fresh petals, nothing like the storm quietly unfolding somewhere in cyberspace. It didn't take long. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed once, twice, then continuously like an angry swarm. I ignored it at first until it buzzed so violently it almost slipped off the counter. When I finally checked it, my heart skipped. Sabrina. My cousin Sabrina. The one who always kept to herself. The one who lived mostly online, but in a quiet, observant way. She had sent one message. It's spreading. Fast, you did the right thing. I blinked. Another message came seconds later. And I shared it with the right people. I didn't ask who the right people were. I didn't need to. Because almost immediately, my notifications exploded: screenshots, shared posts, comments, whispers turning to shouts. People recognized the house in the background. People recognized the tone of my mother's voice. People recognized the card. Parents in the group reacted first. This is heartbreaking. I know who this is. This explains so much. I used to think that family was perfect. This is emotional abuse. Then came neighbors. Then teachers. Then coworkers. Then people from Lily's school. The video went from 50 views to 5,000 in just a few hours. Sabrina privately sent me updates. One of Dad's coworkers confronted him in the office. Aunt Jenna is furious. They tried to trip her into defending them. Lily's followers noticed she hasn't posted all day. And then, check the comments under Lily's latest TikTok. I hesitated, but curiosity won. I opened TikTok, went to Lily's account, and clicked her most recent video, one she'd posted yesterday, posing in a new outfit. The top comments were brutal. Is this the sister you told to be more like you? Where's your older sister, the one who got the half-eaten cake? Explain the scholarship email. We'll wait. Your family seems toxic as hell. Girl, this wasn't supposed to get out, was it? Hundreds more followed. Some unfollowed her publicly. Others demanded explanations. Some even tagged the parent group directly. The perfect family image cracked. Then splintered. Then shattered. By noon, I knew my parents' world was collapsing. A coworker of my dad's apparently emailed HR. A neighbor who had once idolized my mom messaged Sabrina, horrified. Even Lily's favorite teacher reportedly commented privately, asking, "Is this true?" The narrative they tried to create was no longer theirs. And none of it required me to lie. Or exaggerate. Or destroy them. Truth did that on its own. Around 9 p.m., while I was arranging a bouquet of tulips, my phone buzzed again, this time with a voicemail notification from my father. I didn't listen. I didn't need to. I imagined the panic in his voice. The desperation. The frantic attempt to regain control of a story that no longer belonged to them. I simply set the phone face down on the counter. Mr. Green glanced at me. Everything okay? I let out a soft, quiet breath, one that felt like the release of years of tension. Yeah, I whispered, gently tying a ribbon around the bouquet. For the first time, it really is. My phone kept buzzing. Messages kept coming. Chows kept unfolding. But inside the flower shop, sunlight streamed through the clean front window. The stems glistened with droplets. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I had only ever dreamed of. Relief. Not triumphant vengeance. Not righteous pride. Just relief, soft, warm, and earned. I slipped my phone into my apron pocket, stepped back from the counter, and inhaled the sweet scent of fresh tulips and eucalyptus. Whatever storm was happening out there didn't belong to me anymore. I had spoken my truth. And that was enough. The week before orientation, I packed the little loft room that had become my sanctuary. It didn't take long. My life still fit into 2 bags and a cardboard box filled with flowers Mr. Green insisted I take. First day of school needs color, he'd said, pretending it wasn't sentimental. When the rideshare dropped me at the entrance of the art school dormitories, the campus spread out like a quiet dream. Tall oaks, brick pathways, warm morning sunlight bouncing off studio windows. I stood there for a moment, letting the weight of everything settle. All the ways I had broken apart, all the ways I'd rebuilt. The dorm was small but warm. A bed, a desk, a dresser, and a window overlooking a courtyard where students carried sketchbooks and coffee cups. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a locked door. It felt like an open hallway with dozens of rooms to choose from. That night, I arranged my pencils, my small stack of clothes, and the flowers from Mr. Green. I taped my scholarship letter above the desk. Not as a reminder of what I'd escaped, but of what I'd earned. 2 days later, they came. I saw them through the dorm window first, my parents standing by the benches near the campus fountain, looking small and misplaced among students carrying art portfolios. My father checked his watch repeatedly. My mother twisted a tissue until it tore. They had come to the school. To my new world. To the place I had fought tooth and nail to reach. My phone buzzed before I could even turn away. Dad. We're here. Please come talk to us. Just 5 minutes. Mensa. Then another. Mom. Ariana, please. It's important. We can fix this. Then, as if fate needed one last cruel laugh, another notification. Lily. So you just ruined my account? You did this to mess up my opportunities. Why are you like this? What did I ever do to you? It almost made me laugh. After everything, after the cake, after the scholarship sabotage, after the video, they still made it about themselves. I sat on the edge of my dorm bed, heartbeat steady. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I wasn't afraid. I picked up a pen and opened my notebook to a blank page, the same notebook where I had written, I'm not invisible here, and I am becoming someone they can no longer contain. I wrote a short letter. Calm. Simple. Final. I'm not angry. I'm just done. I folded the letter, walked downstairs, and handed it to the dorm receptionist. My parents are outside, I said softly. Can you give this to them? I won't be meeting them. All boo. The receptionist nodded gently, as though she understood more than I had said. I didn't watch them read it. I didn't need to. Whatever storm erupted outside those doors wasn't my storm anymore. Back upstairs, I finally replied to Lily. Me? I didn't ruin anything. I told the truth. She typed back instantly. You want people to hate me? My fingers hovered above the screen for half a second before I wrote. If the truth ruins you, maybe it's time you look at yourself, not me. Bo. She didn't answer after that. Her silence felt like a closing chapter. The next morning was orientation day. The quad buzzed with new students laughing, hugging, comparing schedules. Mr. Green showed up in a pressed shirt, still wearing his florist apron because he forgot to take it off before catching the bus. He held a small bouquet of daisies. For the scholar, he said, holding them out to me. And before you argue, daisies mean new beginnings. I didn't argue. I hugged him instead, something I had never done before. His arms wrapped around me with the warmth of a family I chose, not the one I escaped. As speeches started and students gathered, he found a spot in the back of the crowd, watching me proudly as though he had known me my entire life. In a strange way, he'd known the version of me I was meant to become. The version who wasn't overshadowed, silenced, or ignored. The version who grew in sunlight instead of someone else's shadow. After the ceremony, I wandered the campus paths alone, the wind cool against my face. I passed the design studio, the sculpture courtyard, the library with tall glass windows. Every step felt like a promise, quiet but powerful. When I reached a bench under a tall oak tree, I sat and opened my sketchbook. Inside, tucked between the pages, was the card I had carried all this time. Be more like her. The words no longer hurt the way they once had. They didn't bruise, they didn't echo. They didn't pierce. Instead, they felt distant, like an artifact from another life. A version of me that no longer existed. I ran my thumb over the ink one last time, exhaled slowly, and closed the book. Then I stood, walked to the nearest trash bin, and gently slipped the card inside. No anger. No ceremony. No hesitation. Just release. The wind rustled through the trees as I walked back across campus, sunlight warm on my skin. My past wasn't erased. It wasn't rewritten. It wasn't fixed. It was simply behind me. And for the first time in my life, I could say the final line of my story, not as a wish, not as a fragile whisper, but as truth. I didn't become her. I became someone I'm proud of. And that was enough.